Today we're going to talk about Aang versus Korra, who's the strongest avatar of all time, and I'm going to break everything down. Now, this is a conversation and debate that's been going on for years. Aang and Korra were some of the greatest prodigies we've ever seen. Korra was able to bend 3 elements at the age of 5. She was barely out of her diapers and she was already bending more elements than any avatar before her. Then she was able to master all 3 by the age of 17, and then she went on to master Airbending and the avatar state a year after that. While Aang is the youngest avatar of all time to have mastered the avatar state and then mastered the 4 elements by the time of the comics. I know some people are going to try to refute this, but we do have some evidence behind this as well. An official DVD description talking about the entire show said that Aang mastered the 4 elements by the end of it. Meanwhile, we have TV spots airing during the show also saying the same thing.
Long ago, there lived a great avatar named Aang, master of water, earth, fire, and air.
Avatar extras, which are just descriptions about the show as they go on, say that Aang has now mastered the avatar state by the time he energy bends Ozai. And we see by the time of the comics, he's a fully realized master in every sense of the word because he has no longer any teachings that are necessary for him. Narratively, he has mastered them all. He was so much of a prodigy, it's openly stated that he has surpassed every single airbending master by the time he was 10. So by 10 years old, he was already the greatest airbender on the planet. Now, before we go down the route of the avatar state and who's stronger with what element and how they would win, let's talk about who had stronger antagonists and what it means. Right off the bat, Korra has had stronger antagonists than Aang did, but I see a lot of people underestimate the antagonists that Aang had. Ozai in his base form is easily one of the strongest non-avatar, non-bloodbenders of all time, debatably the strongest. Other masters during their duration like Bumi, Toph, Paku, whoever you want to name, are all weaker than Ozai, and it's openly stated. And then narratively, Ozai has surpassed every Fire Lord before him as well. And how Ozai and Iroh are relative towards each other, and it's openly stated by Iroh himself, insinuating that Ozai would actually defeat him. And with Iroh being stronger than every other master in her surrounding, the White Lotus, we assume that Ozai is stronger than every master we've seen. And most of the masters that we saw during Atla's duration are some of the greatest of all time, even Toph when she's 12 or Bumi when he's 112. Now that's insane when we give context because we're talking about him in his base form. Then we want to amplify him when he's fighting Aang by the power of 100 suns. And obviously we're going to talk about the amplified version of Ozai because that's what Aang fought. He fought Ozai times 100. Now what's crazy about this is everybody talks about how Aang needed the avatar state against Ozai. He did not. It is openly stated by Ozai himself that he knows Aang is holding back the entire fight. Aang had the power to defeat Ozai, he does not use it. Aang is always retreating, always defending, he's not attacking. And we see an example of this animated when Ozai tries to hit him with a lightning strike and Aang redirects it, but he doesn't strike Ozai, he shoots it away. Aang is holding back. What's also crazy about this, Ozai didn't know that Aang knew how to lightning redirect. But even if Aang did, Ozai said that this lightning bolt was so powerful that even if Zuko tried to redirect it, he would die in the process. So whether Aang knew it or not, he should have died. But Aang was a lot more powerful than he anticipated. Now without a doubt, Ozai is stronger than Zahir and Kuvira just in his base form alone, no Sozin's comment needed. And that would require an entirely different video to go over, so make sure you guys like and comment down below if you guys want me to talk about this. The debatable antagonist would be Amon. Amon is stronger than Ozai without a doubt. Bloodbenders just negate anybody else. But with Sozin's comment included, you can actually argue Ozai is stronger than Amon or is Amon level. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. Amon couldn't completely immobilize a base Mako. In fact, Mako was able to strike Amon with lightning because he couldn't completely immobilize him. Base Ozai is already significantly more powerful than base Mako, then you want to amplify him by 100 times. The lightning bolt that Ozai would hit him with, because we know he could do instant lightning like he did against Zuko, would actually one-shot Amon. In fact, you can even argue that Ozai might have a chance to just simply break out of it like Korra did when she lost all of her other elements and she uses air for the first time ever in her life. Now, I would say that argument's a bit more iffy because Amon at that moment was struck by lightning moments beforehand, so I wouldn't use it, but you can argue Ozai with Sozin's comment is Amon level or maybe stronger. Unalaq, on the other hand, is by far the most powerful antagonist that either Aang or Korra fought, without a single doubt. But this feat is usually taken out of context because the way Korra was able to defeat Unalaq was not from her own power. What I mean by that is that she was taking advantage of of harmonic convergence like she should, and with the help of Jinora, she was able to defeat Unavatu. She was able to create a massive Susanoo version of herself, but this is not a form that she could obtain on her own, therefore it's not really fair to use in a battle. That would be like me using Aang when he fused with the ocean spirit. That's not a form he could obtain again, nor will he ever obtain again. And if anybody says that that's something she could use on her own whenever she wants, they're openly lying to you, because no, it's not. She would have used it in other scenarios. There's also one more point I want to add on top of that. There's an inconsistency when it comes to spirits involving the Korra series. Not just the Korra series, but when you look at the totality of Avatar together. We see in Korra, it's openly stated that you can't kill spirits, you're gonna have to spirit bend them to defeat them. But we see Rava nearly beaten to death, which we know can also happen to Unavatu, just like it happened to Rava. Which we know can be a win con with Aang versus Vatu, because it literally happened to Rava. So you don't necessarily need to spirit bend him or trap him in the sphere. But we've also seen Aang kill a spirit, one of the most powerful spirits we've ever seen in the entire series, but he did do it with the help of Toph. But again, he did kill a spirit. This spirit's name was Old General Iron, and he was so powerful that he was able to stalemate Avatar Yang Chen after an entire night of fighting. And Aang killed him by using the 4 elements in his elemental sphere and one-shotted him in the chest. But now that we're done talking about their antagonists, let's actually talk about their bending, their skills, and their techniques. And we're gonna save the controversial one for last. Let's talk about airbending first. Now, this should be really obvious on where it goes, but I will say Korra is no slouch in airbending. Although it was the most difficult element for her to learn, we see that she became a very powerful master with it. We even see her use that powerful gust of wind against Kovira that knocked the robot back. We see her win races with her air scooter against the prodigies of Tenzin's children. She even defeated Amon with airbending, although Amon was just struck by lightning. But Aang surpassed every single airbender on the planet at the age of 10. He created a tornado so powerful against Bumi that it moved a boulder the size of a pickup truck. If they weren't in an enclosed space, Aang's tornado would have been massive. When fighting against Ozai in the Avatar state, he threw a gust of wind that eviscerated stone like it was paper. Just like how other airbenders have their own form of seismic sensing because they're able to feel things from the back of their head, Aang was able to feel and react the combustion bender Sparky Boom Man blast him from behind, and he used a gust of wind to deflect that entire blast. A blast that usually makes pillars into rubble. We remember when Zahir used air to just freeze over a bunch of lava under him. Aang used his airbending to freeze an entire wave of lava instantaneously. He was so skilled in airbending, he didn't just create a new technique to get his airbending tattoos, he also created even more techniques later on in the comics. Now we're on to waterbending, and Aang is a tremendous waterbender, and he learned it very fast, faster than even Katara did. And Katara is debatably the greatest waterbender we've ever seen, effortlessly in the top 3. Aang in the Avatar state was able to use a minuscule amount of water to put out Ozai's flames. Ozai that was amped by 100 suns, and this is the strongest firebender we've ever seen. We saw him control the flow of the ocean and rise the sea level so it could put out all the fires, which is one of the craziest waterbending feats because he's literally raising sea level. But Korra uses water a lot more than Aang did, and she used it more effectively and better in battle. We saw when she was fighting Kovira's robot, she created a massive wave that froze on its body. Very impressive. Korra constantly uses water tornadoes to propel herself upwards in the air, and she uses that to bend other elements at the same time, the same way Aang uses the air scooter to bend other elements. This is an element that she uses a lot more frequently, more effectively. She is the stronger waterbender between the two of them. Now we're up with firebending, and I have a very interesting perspective about this, so I want you to hear me out to the end. I think Aang is a more skilled firebender, but we just didn't get enough content with him after he learns how to actually firebend. But I'm hoping with the newer films we get to see him firebend more often, so we're actually able to judge its strength. And the reason I say Aang is more skilled is because he learned the true meaning of firebending. He learned from the dragons alongside Zuko, and we know how powerful dragon firebending is by Zuko in the comics. There is an actual massive difference between the two. So he basically understands it on its most basic fundamental level, but at the same time he knows about lightning redirection, a sub-element. Now, although he doesn't know how to shoot lightning, knowing how to redirect it is more useful because now he's not vulnerable to these powerful benders. I think Korra beats Ozai every time they fight, but if Ozai gets a shot off with that most powerful lightning shot of all time and she's stuck in a place where she can't dodge it, Ozai now actually has a win con against her, although I don't think he can beat her. That win con doesn't work against Aang because he knows how to redirect it. So yes, I do think Aang is more skilled with firebending, but I do think Korra is the better firebender between the two of them because I just can't give it to Aang yet. Korra uses it a lot more frequently than Aang did by a massive margin. It's definitely one of her preferred elements and she uses it very well. Korra even uses fire to propel herself in the air to fly, just like Ozai did when she's in the avatar state. Now we're on to earthbending, and I do think there's a misconception when it comes to it. Although it was Aang's most difficult element to learn because obviously it differed from his personality, it did take him only a day to learn it, while with Korra learning her most difficult element, it took her almost a year. And in fact, after learning earthbending, it became his most used element other than air. He used it more than water, and after he learned fire, he still used earth more than that as well. So I wanted to get that out of the way because a lot of people think Aang isn't that great of an earthbender. He's a fantastic earthbender. It is his second most used element. But let's go over why with both characters. Both of them have impressive feats when it comes to earthbending. When Korra was poisoned and she was chasing down Zahir, we see her cut off a massive part of a pillar and then throw it towards him. An absolutely insane feat, and mind you, she was poisoned. When we see Aang chasing down Ozai, we see him move 2 pillars instantaneously to cut off his path. Aang's was obviously a lot more impressive, but again, Korra was poisoned, so I won't hold it against her. Aang is also a lot more creative when it comes to earthbending. We see him use an earth armor against Ozai, an earth hand to block Azula's flames. He even created an earth golem to fight against old General Iron, one of the strongest spirits of all time, and he replaced the earth golem head with himself in his elemental sphere. And then Aang has one of the most impressive earthbending feats of all time, and that is splitting the city from the mainland. I know some people try to underrate this feat because they say he just lifted the city up. Even by that logic, lifting the city upwards is still a more impressive earthbending feat than anything Korra has ever done, and is still one of the most impressive feats of all time. But no, that is not what Aang did. We know Aang split the land because we see a massive chasm created, a chasm that happened so fast, so instantly, that Zuko wasn't even able to react to it and he fell down. The chasm happening means that Aang had to push the mainland away from the city, meaning that he had to move the entire continent, the mountain ranges that were on top of it, or maybe he just moved Earth on top of Earth. No matter what, an absolutely absurd feat, and he did it instantly. I find this feat a lot more impressive than Kyoshi's earthbending feat, and I think statistically it is as well. But this isn't the end of the debate between Aang and Korra in earthbending, because again, there's sub-elements like metal bending, and Korra can metal bend, Aang cannot. Not only can Korra metal bend, she's very good at metal bending. Meanwhile, Aang can seismic sense, and he can seismic sense very well as well, reacting faster than Ozai can hit him. With how much more creative Aang is with earthbending, how much more often he uses it, and how much stronger he is than Korra in earthbending, he clears her in that aspect. But Korra being able to metal bend makes the gap a lot closer. And although it does make the gap closer, it doesn't supersede it. Aang is still the greater earthbender between the two of them. I mean, Aang literally split a mountain apart while he was sleeping. As a child, he was sleeping and split a mountain apart. He has by far some of the craziest earthbending feats of all time. Now the next topic is energy bending, and this basically goes to both of them because both of them can take your bending away, they can give you your bending back, like how we saw Aang give back Korra's bending from the afterlife. You can say Aang because it's stated that he has like an unbreakable spirit, but at the end of the day, it goes to both of them. I'm not going to give either one the edge here. Now, spirit bending goes so easily to Korra, and it's not a discussion. Not only does Aang not know how to spirit bend, we literally see him kill a spirit by accident. Meanwhile, Korra was spirit bending one of the most powerful beings in the verse with Unalaq, and then in season 4 she performed one of the craziest spirit bending feats of all time, and that is when Kuvira's spirit vine blast was shot towards her and she accidentally created another spirit portal by deflecting it. This feat is absolutely absurd, and I think it's arguably the greatest feat an Avatar has ever performed. Now, I know a lot of people don't think I give Korra her flowers. Throughout this whole video, I talk about things Korra did, things that she did great. I love Korra, and I do think that is one of the craziest feats we've ever seen, arguably the craziest. But it is a literal non-factor in a battle between the both of them because Korra cannot spirit bend Aang's physical body, and Aang doesn't shoot rays of spirit energy towards her, so she can't bend that either. This feat is a non-factor in the battle between the two of them. Now, Korra is a lot more physical than Aang. She has a lot more durability. She's able to take a lot more punches. She has a lot more brute strength as well. While Aang is more evasive, he's more agile, he's more quick, he's just simply faster than her, while he's also more skilled, he's more intelligent, he has more battle IQ. Now, I know a lot of you guys talk about how Korra has greater fighting stances than Aang, how she's able to just go in a straight brawler stance, but if you guys know anything about fighting, the style that Aang trained from the air nomads is a direct counter to Korra's. Avoid, evade until you have the perfect opportunity to turn your opponent's strength back upon themselves, therefore getting rid of their brute strength and causing harm on themselves. It's something we openly see in the Ozai fight. Aang is avoiding. He's just taking his time until the perfect opportunity where he could strike and take down Ozai, but Aang held back and didn't take advantage of the situation. Now the big question is, who has the better avatar state between the both of them? Because a lot of feats that I gave out was both in their base and the avatar state. So who has the greater avatar state? Now, elemental wise, we see that 2 went to Korra, 2 went to Aang. It's pretty even so far, although I do think Aang's airbending trumps both of Korra's wins. But let's just talk about the raw power in the avatar state. Now, the big thing here is that we know that Korra lost out on all of her past lives, meaning that she lost the skills, the straight power, all of it gone forever. But upon losing that 10,000 years of skills and strength and all of that, she also gained a prime Rava. And before anybody says anything, yes, it's openly stated for all the past avatar lives that you have, you get their power, all their energy, all the skills at your disposal. It's stated in Avatar Extras. It's stated in the Avatar Legacy novel that's written by Aang to Tenzin. So Aang has a Rava, but a weaker Rava, plus the past 10,000 years of powers and energies and skills. And Aang has shown more impressive feats in the Avatar state and more skillful feats in the Avatar state, so it's implied that his avatar state does have an advantage here. I also think air nomad avatars have an advantage in battle because we've only seen them use the elemental sphere upon themselves. We've seen Korra and Wan use it against someone else, like when they trapped Vatu in it, but only Avatar Yang Chen and Aang used it upon themselves, and this is one of the most powerful forms an avatar can take. We've never seen the sphere pierce, broken, damaged. We just see them supply them with 4 elements to bend all at the same time. Meanwhile, Korra, when she's in her avatar state, when she wants to fly or hold herself up in the air, she uses a water tornado or she uses fire like Ozai to propel herself through it. Now, this is a big point because if Aang is in his elemental sphere bending all 4 elements and flying with ease, and Korra is forced to fly through the air using fire propulsions, it'll be a lot harder for her to maneuver herself correctly in the air. It'll be a lot harder for her to bend all 4 elements because Aang is freeform flying and he has everything at his fingertips. We literally see him take a little pebble that's surrounding him, floating around him, and shoot it at Ozai where it destroys an entire landscape of Earth. And that's like 1 out of 100 rocks rotating around him. So I'm taking the 10,000 years worth of avatars in a Rava rather than a more powerful prime version of Rava with no past lives. Now, another argument I see people use is talking about when the creators said who they think would win between Aang and Korra, but a lot of people misrepresent what was actually said. So they either misrepresented on purpose or they just didn't watch the whole video.
Who would win, Avatar Aang or Avatar Korra?
I say that Aang would win because I know that Korra's very stubborn and headstrong, but I think ultimately she's extremely deferential to and respectful of Aang. But listen, if I'm wrong, this is very good information for me to have.
I think you are always your own worst enemy. So in a way, they would always like defeat each other, or it would just be like the worst stalemate.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't. I mean, they would talk it out.
You know, I watch a lot of fighting, and it's like they'll say like, you know, 9 times out of 10 I'll beat that person, but there's always that one, and I feel like 9 times out of 10 Aang would just get away. There's always that one time Korra like gets a hold of his like cowl and then just beats the crap out of him.
At first they said if the two of them were to fight, it would end in a stalemate every single time they fight. But they did follow it up after including their personality types, where it's not just a straight up fight between the two of them. They talk about how the 12-year-old Aang would just run away every single time, avoiding confrontation because that's who Aang is, obviously. But out of every time he just runs away to avoid fighting Korra, Korra would grab him 1 out of the 10 times and just beat him up after she grabs him by the collar. In this, they're just referring to Aang's non-confrontational side. He tries to avoid fighting bad guys. He tries to avoid fighting good guys. He tries to talk out every scenario. We literally see this when Aang was training with Zuko on the beach. Zuko was attacking him. Aang didn't know why, and the entire time Aang is telling him to stop. We could talk this out. Why are you attacking me? I don't want to attack you, no matter how many times Zuko attacked him. It wasn't until the very end when Zuko was burning everything down that he just simply hit him with a gust of wind and told him to stop. Korra does not care if you're friend or foe. She will beat you up if she has the chance, and we've seen her do before. One character is a pacifist, the other is not. My conclusion is that Aang is a more skilled and intelligent fighter and bender, while Korra is a more physically stronger one. The only problem is that she's not physically stronger than the other two elements to actually make the gap difference. Aang is physically stronger when it comes to air, when it comes to earth. He has more bending feats that are more powerful, and then when you add on top that he has a stronger avatar state that's just a lot more overpowered, he has more skill from past lives added on top of his. I just see no logical way where Aang doesn't beat Korra. Aang is the stronger avatar between the two of them, and I'm very excited to see the Avatar movie come out when they're adults, because we're going to get the real truth on how powerful Aang could truly be when he's not 13 years old. But at the end of the day, this doesn't matter because Aang and Korra would never actually fight. And I bet if Korra still had her past lives with her for season 3 and season 4, Aang would be absolutely proud of her. Like Korra reviving the Air Nation, Korra creating a better bond between the human and the spirit world, creating another spirit portal. Aang would be absolutely proud of Korra in every aspect of the word. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe, leave a comment down below on what I should do next. If this video gets 500 likes, I'll make a video talking about Aang versus Korra's antagonist.